All right, on Misinformation today, we're pulling apart the USAID. I'm here with my co-host Penny and our special guest Anna today. Thanks for joining us, Anna. It's good to have you here.
Thanks so much for having me.
So I'm going to have a quick look at USAID as I understood it. And to be fair, I didn't know who they were. And I think there's an interesting name spelling thing going on there. You think of USAID, right? When you read it, you think, oh, what a nice organization. It's USAID. They're good folks, right? They must be. But in actual fact, if you look at what it stands for, it's US, United States Agency of Investment. And do we know what the D stands for?
Development.
Development. That's right. Yeah, that's right. Investment and development. And they're an agency, like the CIA is an agency. So you've got to sort of remember that, just like the CIA, who have a bit of a reputation for going into countries and kind of messing with them for whatever ideology they're pursuing or gains that they've got, it seems now that that's perhaps what USAID was doing. And
It's
I don't
definitely
like
not aid. Aid.
I really don't want to call it USAID. I really don't, because I think it's deceptive. It's a neat little marketing spin that it's like, oh, USAID. Yeah,
Doing
but it's
great
not.
philanthropic things.
And we see people who are being really skeptical of it going, no, it's USAID. I think that's why Trump keeps referring to it in that way. And I think that's why the right-wing media keeps referring to it in that way. And so let's go through a couple of things I've got up on the screen just to give context, because honestly, as much as just 7 days ago, I'd not heard of them. Had you heard of them? No. Anna, had you heard of them?
I had not heard of USAID, but I have been looking into certain overseas funders for the last few months, surprisingly.
Really? Yep. That's interesting. Okay, well, look, I'm just going to bring this one up here. We'll start with some left-wing media, and I'll just pull that on the screen. So this is from MSN.com or MSNBC. Claims about USAID funding are spreading online. Many are not based on facts. Okay, so what are they saying? The Trump administration is trying to dismantle the US Agency for International Development. False and misleading information is being pushed on social media to support the change, much of it spread by the administration and Elon Musk, that bad man. Okay, so the press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, actually I've got a picture of her here. This is her doing a piece to the press. My goodness, she's onto it, that lady. You guys have seen her?
Yep.
Yeah, she's really, really onto it. So we've got this thing about her going on about the things that it had been spending money on, and that there's been $32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru. And what the left-wing media seem to be going from a perspective here is they're sort of going, this is terrible. Oh, what a bad thing that's happening. Bad orange man. He's taking away the funding of this really great benefactor, this international organization that's really trying to help the world. And we need this to carry on. So much so that, in fact, I've got this one up here, Donald Trump, and this is now our left-wing media in New Zealand, right? Or at least that's how I describe Radio New Zealand. Donald Trump's rapid dismantling of USAID leaves workers around the world concerned for safety and futures, because workers around the world couldn't possibly
figure it out without them.
Yeah, it has to have this agency doing things. And here's another one. What
Workers around the world couldn't cope without Sesame Street being made in Iraq.
Funny you should mention Sesame Street. That actually comes up in a minute. So look, we're seeing different sort of approaches here from the left-wing media, but none of it is talking about the absolute corruption that I'm seeing, or at least that is apparent to me. And if you have a balance, if you're in an echo chamber, we've got a bit of left and right, and I try to make sure there's some left in there, because my heart was left. It really, I grew up in a single parent family, and the social net, I think, is wonderful. But more and more, I was just, what are these leftards doing? But, haven't always liked the right, though. But, let's just try to keep it nice and fair. Pacific Aid experts concerned over moves to shut down USAID. So they're really concerned about it. And before I hand it over to you guys, because I know you've got, I missed that there for the camera. I was going to give this one to everyone watching. Pacific Aid experts concerned over moves to shut down USAID. And that's generally the left perspective, right? So let's go now over to Jesse Waters. Now, this is the right. This is brilliant.
These are some of the insane priorities that organization has been spending money on. $1.5 million to advance DEI in Serbia's workplaces, $70,000 for a production of a DEI musical in Ireland, $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia, $32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru. I don't know about you, but as an American taxpayer, I don't want my dollars going towards this crap, and I know the American people don't either, and that's exactly what Elon Musk has been tasked by President Trump to do, to get the fraud, waste, and abuse out of our federal government.
Right. That's amazing, right? I mean, what the hell?
Yeah.
Did you know about that? That blew me away. I couldn't believe it.
Well, what I find really interesting about all of this, and probably my excitement to come and actually just start having this conversation together, is I've been looking at the funding funnels and the trans stuff and all the pride and rainbow charities here in New Zealand for a while. Like, I've been tracking it, but I hadn't been able to figure out, like, where is all the money coming from.
You did a pretty good job, though. I mean, you saw where things were being funded in a lot of different ways, but this is like quite underhand, isn't it?
Well, this is like what's above it, I think.
Right.
You know, what's coming, you know, what they're calling aid, but actually they're funding the left-wing narrative. They're funding what I would consider to be the Sustainable Development Goals, the UN agenda, which is, when it comes to children, it's childhood immunisation stuff, but it's also the trans stuff, the gender stuff, and it comes through DEI, diversity, equity and inclusion. So that's when I was like, hang on, there's got to be a link, and then there's lots of people out there now finding these New Zealand links to USAID. So I'm like, where's the link with all the gender stuff? That's what I'm interested in.
Right.
Anna's interested in something else, but then we sit together and nut it out.
You've got a bunch of things you found New Zealand related, right? And Anna, you too?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, before we go to that, let's just let him just entertain us with the last couple of bits, because honestly, this is incredible.
$20 million for Iraqi Sesame Street, $2 million for Moroccan pottery classes, $11 million to tell Vietnam to stop burning trash, $27 million to give gift bags to illegals before we deport them, millions to help Afghanis grow crops instead of opium. That program was such a success that opium production doubled. We all
Can I just say, crops.
$300 million to build diesel fuel power plants, but they couldn't use them because diesel was too expensive. $200 million on a dam that was too unsafe to ever be used. We could have used that dam in California. $250 million on a road that was never used. We literally built a road to nowhere. Oh, and we gave Syrians $9 million for humanitarian aid. But someone messed up and it went to Al-Qaeda. $1 million for bat research in Wuhan. That equates to $1 million for each dead American. USAID was funding Fashion Week in Paris. France isn't even paying its NATO dues, and we're paying for their Fashion Week. USAID's a $40 billion deep state social justice slush fund. And the president says it's a little fishy.
Elon Musk, how often are you talking to him? And have there been ideas that he has brought to you that you've said, oh, no, wait a minute, this is going a little too far?
Well, many ideas, but look, he's done a great job. Look at all the fraud that he's found in this USAID. It's a disaster what the people, radical left lunatics, they have things that nobody would have even believed. The whole thing with $100 million spent on you know what, with money going to all sorts of groups that shouldn't deserve to get any money. With the money, I'd like to see what the kickbacks are. How much money has been kicked back? Who would spend that kind of money?
I might stop it there. It goes on. Check out that link. Just search Jesse Waters, Fox News, if that's of interest to you. I'll hand it over to you, but just before I do, Penny, because I'm so interested with what you found. This morning I was watching one of those things they do on X, right, where you can listen to a whole bunch of people, and they got the little icons and different people are talking. So they had Vivek Ramaswamy, Elon, and an American lady, a senator, who was trying to explain on the Spaces chat all the stuff that they had uncovered, right? And apparently they said in this Spaces chat that Elon had found 30 to 40% of the money they take is actually spent on their rent. Things like empty office buildings that no one's going to, because their issue in the US is 6% of people are returning to work. And they have these places in Paris that are empty office buildings. They're so empty that homeless people have broken the windows, set up camp inside of them, and no one's coming to work anyway. So the homeless people have a place to live. You might think all of that money might be better spent on actually helping homeless people, properly. But anyway, it's fascinating that you have billions, if not trillions, probably billions, going through to this organization being spent all around the world. And now maybe, Penny, you can tell me where it's being spent here, or Anna, what have you got?
Anna wants to jump in. So.
Oh, well, I just want to say that I find it genuinely astounding is that the US government under the Biden administration, they state that they're for the people, they want to build America and make it a spectacular country. Then they go and give all their money, they give it away throughout the world, being able to control their other people's governments, other people's opinions, media, all of these different entities that they've been supposedly donating their funds to. And it's absolutely astounding the fact that the American people, a lot of them, still stand up and say, well, we like this, that's the way we want it. This company, this agency,
If I were the American people, I'd be pretty pissed off.
Yeah.
Right? Because, the economy's struggling here, everywhere. And why is their money being funneled offshore, but also it's not going to the things that they're supposedly saying that it's going to, it seems.
But also, why is the money not going to the people of those fires in Los Angeles? And why is the money not going to the flood victims in North Carolina?
That's right.
So they're giving them, $700, yet they're paying $20 million
100%.
to Sesame Street in Iraq.
Don't forget the Maui fires. Don't forget them.
The Maui fires, they got absolutely nothing.
The news cycle is what it is, and then that's gone, right? We just forget about them. That's not cool.
Yeah, it's because the media is controlled and they want to tell us. Like even when you looked at that Radio New Zealand article, that's an example of the left-wing media.
Yeah.
The people perhaps that are writing those things or saying those things might really believe that they're getting good intel, but the people at the top must know which side their bread is buttered on in order to have the narrative going out. Like I literally on Jack Tame Q&A yesterday morning, he was interviewing the ex-ambassador to America and who was there under the previous Trump administration. And he even said, it wasn't a landslide, Trump getting him this time. It's like, yeah, it actually was. And
oh my God, it was a total landslide.
Yeah, and he was saying, they were quite negative about Trump and really concerned about him as far as what he's going to do to kill New Zealand's exports and all that. And I'm thinking, this is the mainstream. Like this is Jack Tame, and that seems to be still the only narrative that they can push. So it's interesting times.
Yeah. Earlier, before we kicked off, Anna, you were talking about vested interests. Did I understand that right? What were you saying about that?
Yeah, so I guess this leads into our conversation that that Penny and I have been looking into, is the fact that why does the United States of America have such a vested interest? Particularly, I've been looking into our health services in New Zealand.
Yeah.
They have been giving a lot of money, and it's not just USAID, it's the Department of Health and Human Services as well. Right. So there is this very, very systemic problem that's going on, and they're reaching further than what they admit. And that is really disconcerting.
Indeed. Well, Penny, why don't you kick off with the things that you found, and I can bring them up on screen if there's anything to go with it.
Yeah, sure. So, Stephen, can you just pull up the first one, please? This is research space from Auckland University. So this was a document that was sent to me, a link that was sent to me. So this is towards transformative gender education programming. Yeah, so this was, I was just sent this the other day, and obviously, people are Googling and they're searching where USAID is popping up in New Zealand. So you'll see in the first paragraph there. So this is from 2022, in the abstract. So the brief was prepared by a team from University of Auckland, which was contracted to undertake a landscape analysis of USAID's efforts to promote gender equality in and through education. USAID Gender and Education Working Group provided support and participated in development of the brief. So this is Auckland University in 2022. So it's just a link to USAID being involved in Auckland University with regards to gender education programming, which is obviously what I deal with a lot.
Well, what are they doing there with that? Like,
well, you can't link into the documents, so you need to be a part of it. So what I did was, and obviously if you go up there, the reference is from EduLinks overseas. But if you scroll back up to the top,
sure,
I started looking into the people that were listed on here.
Oh, Locke and
So if you go to Ritesh Shah, so who is Ritesh Shah? And he's not a name of anyone that I've heard of in regards to all my research into all of the trans stuff through the universities. There's a bunch of other people.
Interestingly, born and raised in the United States.
Yeah, so he's from India, born and raised in the United States, went to Stanford, was a teacher. He was a Fulbright graduate student, so that's interesting as well.
Yeah. What's the connection there with Fulbright?
Well, I'm just starting to look at that and who's involved in all that. I'll maybe come back to that another day.
Right.
So there he is in the University of Auckland. So then I started looking at a few things that he's been doing. So you'll see down there under academic positions, you'll see UNESCO. He's listed UNESCO. So UNESCO is the education component of the United Nations. So
sorry, where's the UNESCO part on the page?
Under the academic position. So if you just go below where the videos are, you'll see the University of Ulster UNESCO
behind my lava
Centre.
lamp.
Yeah, behind your lava lamp. So I just sort of look at sort of which organisations he's been connected to.
Right.
Because UNESCO is, and we show this in our roadshow videos with Let Kids Be Kids, that UNESCO messaging around transgender comes into the Ministry of Education, and the video about it sits in the Ministry of Education's website.
Yeah.
So, but I hadn't heard of this guy. But anyway, I went and had a look at some of his YouTube clips, and actually if you go to the third one in there, but what I actually found, so I started off looking at where USAID is connected to the trans stuff.
Yeah.
Right. It's connected through education, which we know that Auckland University is connected to a lot of the trans stuff. But lo and behold, I came across COVID-19 stuff.
Okay.
So I wasn't looking for that here. And then that's when I started talking to Anna.
Did you know about this, Anna?
Oh, yes, we were researching this. Yes, we were both looking into it.
I think with what you're associated with, you might have found that particularly interesting.
So this is a really interesting video, and we can put the links below. But could you play it?
And as we all know, the educational experiences of learners and teachers all around the world have significantly been disrupted over the past years, both by the implications of the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as other factors like conflict, crisis, and climate-related interruptions. Governments and partners around the globe have been navigating how to mitigate learning loss and to sustain learning outcomes through these education disruptions and school closures. And many are really grappling with the long-term struggle of how to engage, or in some cases re-engage, children and youth in education.
Okay.
So I just wanted to throw that there because it's tying in, so it's USAID funding through the Auckland University. It's tying in its research about the impact in the education system due to the COVID-19 pandemic, right? Which we all know, if you've got kids in school, that there's long-term fallout from the implications of the really strict measures that they put into place, well exceeding any potential risk of illness of the pandemic. Okay?
Right.
So this whole video is actually talking about, it's quite frightening. In a couple of places, they actually use the phrase "build back better," and what it actually looks like to me is they're educational experts, and they're looking at how the response to the pandemic in education can be used as a basis of making sure that next time there's a better response and all of that stuff. So they're basically using it as an example of how to tighten up control.
Right.
Over how education is dealt with in future. So they talk about build back better. They talk about equipping education actors, which is really bizarre. They talk about responding to future crisis, which we will inevitably face. So this is, funding from USAID coming into Auckland University, and you can hear if you had a kid in school at the time where that overlaid into what was potentially going on in New Zealand. The premise of this particular video is actually looking at other countries. So it's looking at third world countries, Uganda and Rwanda and things like that, which is actually where, when you look at the medical stuff, they're controlling a lot of the narrative around the medical. So there seems to be all these connections, and it's odd because you've got USAID funneling this through Auckland University.
Mm. Okay.
So yeah, there's some really strange things going on there. So Ritesh Shah was the principal investigator on this stuff. He also, can I just get you to go back to the second link on our files, because this is Jack Tame on a Q&A with Ritesh. So I just want to show sort of tie into him being on New Zealand's mainstream media.
At the UN this week, Foreign Minister Winston Peters renewed his call for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, in particular to allow aid organisations to work unhindered. It comes as the head of USAID warns a famine is already underway for some Palestinians in Gaza. Dr. Ritesh Shah is a senior lecturer at the University of Auckland's Faculty of Education and Social Work. He led research projects in Gaza and is an expert in the politics of aid.
Look, it's an absolute tragedy on so many levels. But the thing that I am most worried about is the young people, the children, the future generations of Palestinian young people who I've seen time and time again have to weather conflict after conflict. Children who are 18 now have lived through 6 different conflicts. So this is just the latest in a long-standing set of tragedies there.
Samantha Power, who's the head of...
So really in there, and I just want to make a disclaimer and say I'm not an expert on the whole Gaza situation. It's very hard to know what's really going on over there, right? But what I'm seeing here is a particular narrative being pushed, and obviously this guy is funded through USAID, through the university. We do care about the children, but we want to know the truth of what's really going on.
Well, that's always the angle of attack, isn't it? The angle of concern. We're really concerned about these things, so let's get involved in this way.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I just wanted to show the connection between he gets on the media. Who is this guy?
Yeah, right. Well, maybe the media is establishing his media credentials so that, because you see that in the development of personalities on the media. Oh, he's come in before about this other thing. He's associated with USAID and he's helping with such and such. And let's get him back for this new topic we're talking about. And now we're talking about lockdowns, or now we're talking, and you position and you groom people into positions of authority.
Yeah, and Anna's going to show that we're going to look at someone else that everybody knows now because that's what's happened. And I just find, it's weird. I've really just come across him because literally looking at that connection with the university and the trans stuff.
Right.
And then finding the COVID-19 stuff, but he's also the expert now on Gaza because it just feels funny. Okay, so let's go back to Ritesh Shah's University of Auckland bio. So,
got that on screen.
So then, if we go to the research tab in the middle there, this you'll see in the first sentence there. My research is driven by a key global ambition signalled in the Sustainable Development Goals. So he's all about pushing the Sustainable Development Goals. So the more that you look into that, the more you're like, oh, I see what he's doing, and then you can scroll down and see. And then this work has had significant impact on the work of USAID, specifically based on the 2019 white paper I authored for the agency. Since then, I have continued to work with USAID on applying this framework to the COVID-19 context.
Okay, so since then he's continued to work with USAID. So that's a very telling moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's telling you here that he's really closely associated with them.
That's what it appears to me, yes.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, what's the next thing you got to show us?
So Anna will talk about this in a minute, but Uni Services.
So Uni Services is the business arm of the University of Auckland. It provides grants and funding for research projects, and it's actually the essence of what it is set up to be is really, really cool. But it's the one key factor that Penny and I here have just consistently found keeps popping up.
28,000 COVID-19 vaccinator course completions.
Through IMAC.
So let's just take note of that point right now.
Yeah.
28,500. Yeah, 36,659 clinical queries. what is it? Clinical queries on IMAX
so
immune
that's the
phone.
immune. Yeah.
Right.
So this one, just pause on that one. So over 6,000 people engaged in online courses through Whāraurau.
Whāraurau?
Yeah. So if going back to our exposure of the HEEADSSS assessment, which is a psychosocial tool that our children in school are getting.
Yeah.
That's all organised through Whāraurau, which is an agency of or part of Auckland University. So we're seeing all these threads. And the other thing around that is that in the stuff that I'm looking at with Ritesh Shah, he talks about social emotional learning. Now, social emotional learning is these surveys. So they survey our children, they gather all the data, then that goes into all sorts of things, I would say. And then there is so it's create the problem, create the solution. Now we've got a million different mental health services and companies doing surveys and all these different things for our children. Like everybody's got some sort of a label on them. That's, I believe, driven through social emotional learning and continually surveying our children. And the surveys of the children are getting driven through the universities. Just leave our kids alone.
Yeah, totally.
Right? Let kids be kids. So I'm going to pause for a minute and hand it over to Anna. What do you want to show us?
Okay, so why don't you tell them first about the Lego thing?
Oh, yeah, the Lego thing. So,
well, what's this Lego thing?
Oh, you've got to see this. So you'll never believe what I found. So, Stephen, if you can go to our notes.
Okay.
And you can see a bullet down the bottom, which is called Lego and gender.
Okay, hang on a second. I'm just going to find this. It's down the bottom, is it?
This is a real treat. So Siouxsie Wiles, who we all know as the pink-haired lady.
Is from here? Is this okay?
Yeah.
Cool.
In 2006, I experienced a life-changing event. That was the year that my daughter Eve was born. Here she is, 2 days old, having just had her first vaccination. Now, for me, the most amazing thing about becoming a parent has been rediscovering my childhood love of Lego. I'd forgotten how awesome this toy is. My brother and I used to spend hours and hours building like the hugest towers we could.
All right, stop it there. Thank you. So this is really interesting because I want to know why Siouxsie Wiles, the microbiologist who's made it famous around the COVID stuff, 10 years ago was on a TEDx talking about how Lego shouldn't be so gender binary.
But seriously though, what is that? How is that benefiting TEDx? Usually they present research and really fascinating human kind of interaction. She's just complaining for 10 minutes about Lego and the fact that there are no girls.
$10 says we find out in the future that TEDx is also paid by USAID.
Oh, that wouldn't be surprising, would it?
Well, no, it wouldn't.
It probably would be. But then you've also got, like, for me now looking at the gender stuff, and I'm quite new in it, and I know it's been going on for a long time, but they've been scratching away for a long time at deconstructing the gender binary.
Right.
And so even though you're looking at it and it's in your face now, back 10 years ago, these are all the little threads to like questioning the binary. And it's like, it's Lego. Let kids play. I mean, they can take a man's head off the man's body and put it on a girl's body anyway. What's the problem? Why does it need to be a TEDx talk? Yeah,
actually, you look at it from that perspective and you see the threads and then the layers put upon more and more and more of these sort of the social programming, right? Which then, as you build that in and accepting, it's only a little step in that direction. So I'll be okay with that. It's only a little step. And then the more of these little steps, and suddenly now it's 2025, you can't really undo that, all of those steps. You can't say the truth about it because, oh no, that's terrible, you know? That's all of a sudden you're upsetting people for highlighting the truth, I suspect.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
I guess that's how it leads into the fact that she was brought in after speaking about Lego and gender. She was brought in as an expert on the COVID-19 response. And she's got a really fascinating area of study. She's bioluminescence and she makes bacteria glow so she can research how they work and things like that. So it's genuinely really interesting. But she's also funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, who are very, very entrenched with USAID, as well as the World Health Organization. They are the largest funders of vaccine production in the world. And they often fund her research. And we've got a link here that shows. Yeah, so Stephen, can you just take us to the Blake link and then just scroll down the page a little bit?
Yeah.
Keep going a little bit.
Her research career has...
Yes, if you stop there, using funding from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
Ah, there it is.
Yeah, her team used bioluminescence to develop a rapid and cost-effective method for screen compounds and vaccines to beat TB.
Right,
Super cool.
You were saying that it's really interesting.
Well, it is because I like sparkly, glowing things.
Oh, who doesn't?
And bright colours.
Of course.
It sounds really interesting. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
The thing is that Bill Gates and USAID and the World Health Organization are all connected, and he said it on The View the other day that he's really connected and collaborates strongly with USAID. So I think that's sort of what we found in this research. So Penny's doing the gender stuff and I'm sort of looking into the COVID-19 response, is that Auckland University and uni services keeps popping up every single time.
Wow.
And whether they receive enormous amounts of funding from USAID or not, they are still receiving enormous amounts of funding from US government entities.
And with this kind of ideology being really, really left-wing, I guess it's no mistake or accident that universities like Auckland Uni are really lefty.
Yes.
Right? And they tend to really encourage that and move it along, really push the dial with that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and you wouldn't typically tend to bite the hand that feeds you. So
oh, no.
you kind of want to... And you would be educated and indoctrinated, I guess is what you would call it, into that specific framework. So I find it quite interesting that she's funded by these people who are so interconnected with USAID, but she's also connected with Pfizer. And then you go and have a look into Helen Petousis-Harris, who receives a lot of funding from uni services in Auckland. You go and have a look, and she stated it blatantly on an interview on the platform. Yes.
Is this her here?
Yes, this is.
Who's she when she's at home?
She is a vaccinologist.
Oh.
Yes, so she runs the Global Vaccine Data Network,
right.
And that is GVDN. She's also, if you look at her career and scroll down on this part here, she's been part of the World Health Organization.
Right.
She's also often who they interview on the mainstream media.
Yeah, so she is another expert that they bring into the media.
Experts that they have groomed, just like Siouxsie.
Just like Siouxsie.
And she says, I don't receive any money from the Gates Foundation, where it says on GVDN's website, I can show that to you if you like.
Yeah, please.
Now go to About.
Go to About.
So she formed this, didn't she?
Yeah, this is something that Helen Petousis-Harris founded.
So what's this showing us?
Now, if you scroll down, now here, if you go to our funding.
Okay.
Scroll down.
Hosted by Uni
So
Services.
the GVDN received seed funding from the Gates Foundation.
Wow.
So she stated blatantly that she doesn't receive any money from Bill Gates on the interview with the platform, yet she does. And
so
then,
is she the GVDN in a sense? She says she doesn't, but is she actually the GVDN?
Yes.
She founded it.
Yeah.
Well, then how can you not say exactly? I mean, you've made a very good point.
Yeah, it's just basically, I don't know whether it's a conflict of interest, but we get into the conflict of interest next, because she also states that she's not funded by Pfizer. And maybe she doesn't get huge amounts of money from Pfizer, but if you look at the research review that she wrote in 2021 about countering vaccine misinformation, a practical guide for healthcare providers. So we've got Helen Petousis-Harris. She's the expert here. And she wrote, for the research review, countering vaccine misinformation. She stated explicitly that she doesn't get sponsored by Pfizer. But if you scroll right down to the bottom of this page, of this review,
yes.
right down.
Right down, okay.
There's Pfizer.
Oh, hello.
There's also GlaxoSmithKline. So what we're seeing here is that Auckland University gets a lot of funding from a lot of different people.
Yeah. What year was this? Or
people who are associated with Auckland University.
What year was this?
This is in 2021.
Ah, well, like in leading up to the pandemic, I can tell you because I worked at GSK at that time as their professional relations manager, and they were the world's largest manufacturer of vaccines. I left before the pandemic, before everyone was pushed
Before
to jab.
Pfizer took over? Is Pfizer bigger than them now?
It's fascinating, in fact, because what happened at the time was GSK and Pfizer got together and they did a little joint venture prior to the pandemic. Great timing, and they
How
created created a consumer company called Haleon, and Haleon was an offshoot of Pfizer and GSK's over-the-counter products. And they did this thing where they divested it into a third entity called Haleon. That's where you get your Sensodyne and your Polydent from and your chapstick now, because those were like a collection of different products, the consumer arm of GSK and Pfizer. They went, let's get rid of this because we really don't want to be dealing with these in case something really big in a medical comes along that we've got to deal with. And so they did. And then that all sort of was set up to happen just sort of weirdly enough before the events of COVID-19.
Almost like they might have thought that they knew that something big was about to happen.
I mean, I'm not saying that. I don't know. I just watched it roll out and saw the restructure and all that. And it was quite interesting. But I remember at the time, GSK was the world's largest manufacturer of vaccines prior to it being the mantle being taken by Pfizer. Anyway, sorry, Anna, for
that was an
distracting.
interesting little
segue.
Yes, yeah. So you get her sponsored. I don't know if she's sponsored, so I can't say that. I'm just stating what I've seen online.
Right.
So if you just read the sentence above it, this publication has been created with an unrestricted educational grant.
Yeah, a grant from GSK, Pfizer and Seqirus.
I mean, we're all smart enough to know that when you take sponsorship from a pharmaceutical company, you're allowed to say certain things.
And you're not allowed to say certain things.
Yeah.
But then,
that's true.
okay, so you get Pfizer here. That's not really that interesting until you go, oh, this USAID stuff's come out. Why don't we look on the government spending website of the US?
Yeah.
And there's a place called Republican.com and Auckland Uni Services Limited. And this is not USAID money, but this is the Department of Health and Human Services, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, gave the Global Vaccine Data Network, GVDN, run by Helen Petousis-Harris, $10 million. That was allocated in their budget. Whether they gave her the full amount or not, or whether they gave the organisation the full amount, I don't know. But why is the University of Auckland, GVDN, receiving $10 million from the US government to do research? Okay, so what we're looking at here is we've moved from the unrestricted grant from Pfizer, GlaxoSmithKline and Seqirus for the research review.
You don't hear that very often. Did you say unrestricted, like a blank check?
Well, it said on the other page, if we go back to the
No, I believe you.
other page, it said unrestricted.
Okay, so that was down the bottom, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
this is an unrestricted educational grant.
I don't know. Look, I'll be fair. That I don't know that necessarily means the money amount was unrestricted. It may mean that
that they can say whatever they like.
Yeah, it may mean they can say what they want. Say what you want, But we all know not to bite the hand that feeds us. But unrestricted is supposed to, I think, imply that hey, we're really just supporting you guys, and however it turns out, even if it doesn't look good for us, we're going to support you. That may be what that means.
Yep, it absolutely could. So I don't want to say that she's receiving lots of money from Pfizer, but she has received some.
Fair point. Okay, let's go back to Data Republican. DataRepublican.com. What is this?
Okay, so when I searched uni services in this site, you come up with Auckland Uni Services Limited, which is what I've been looking into for the last few months because their director, Nikki Turner, she has been caught out with a severe conflict of interest, giving her husband an uncompeted contract for vaccinator training and making quite a lot of money out of it.
Wow.
Yeah, so uni services is something I've been looking into for a while, but what never made sense is how they got so much money to give away. Well, you type in uni services into this website, and you get that there was $10 million allocated to the Global Vaccine Data Network, which is run with Helen Petousis-Harris. And basically, it's it's looking into developing the COVID vaccines and using all sorts of things to counter misinformation, reassure the safety and efficacy of the vaccines, all that kind of jazz using our clinical information.
Don't you think it's interesting that looking up at the screen there, it says ends 15th of April 2026. Let's bring that up on screen. Right there.
Yep.
Awarded by the Department of Health and Human Services for disease control and prevention. Is that the American Department of Health?
Yes, that's in the States. Why are they investing so heavily?
Now a Department of Health and an agency, USAID, are doing this into New Zealand. And when you look at that really closely, and you can see up there on the screen, it ends in 2026. We've still got another year of this to go. What indeed are they doing? I don't know anything. This is just very interesting. Some missed information there for sure. Yeah.
So when Penny and I keep looking, we are finding constantly Auckland University and Uni Services. And it's not even like we're trying to find it. You type that in.
What exactly are you, when you find these things, what exactly are you looking for?
Well, prior to the big announcements of USAID, I was looking at Auckland University a lot as far as particular people that I keep looping back to who are really involved with the charities and the training around all the trans stuff.
Right. And was that the same for you? And obviously you're not looking at trans stuff so much with the things that you do. So what were you looking at?
It came out in the end of October last year that Nikki Turner, the Auditor General, finds the contract related to Dr. Nikki Turner inappropriate. So there's a huge conflict of interest that nobody competed for the contract to train the vaccinators.
Wow.
It was just given to her husband. But Nikki Turner heads up Uni Services, which is the business arm of the University of Auckland. So she sort of oversees it. Whether she had a huge role to play in it, they state in the News Talk ZB article that she definitely seemed to appear to push for it in the emails, but her husband's company down at the University of Otago, they received the contract and nobody else had a bidding opportunity for it. So basically what I did is I thought, that's a little bit perplexing because I can see that Helen Petousis-Harris seems to have a bit of a conflict of interest, as well as the fact that Helen Petousis-Harris has been paid by Pfizer to speak at different events. It's not a huge amount of money, but it's on their transparency website of the Pfizer New Zealand site. And their annual report saying that, we paid these people to go and speak at these different events. So I kind of started looking into that.
Yeah.
And then you just seem to find that it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And the one thing I couldn't quite pull off was to work out where they get this massive amount of funding from. And it appears that a lot of it's coming from overseas, from these government organisations that have a vested interest in New Zealand.
Gosh, that's fascinating. What is this vested interest? And what are we uncovering here?
I don't know. Can I just get you to go to a different link which shows the same data here, but it's the USA spending. So if you go back to our notes, because
so what's on this one?
Okay, so if you just scroll down a bit, so it says project grant includes COVID-19 spending.
Yes.
So it's Department of Health and Human Services to Auckland Uni Services, and you'll see the end date 2026, like you said, for 2021.
Yes,
but see down here, you actually see overall spending. So you can see they've spent just over half of it, and they've still got half of it to go.
Obligated amount.
Before 2026. So.
Right.
Like you said, COVID's not done yet. And then they've separated out the tab for COVID-19 spending. Now, why are they still only halfway through their allocated spend for COVID-19, and what's happening between now and 2026?
Yeah. Wow. You're scaring me a little there. Because isn't the pandemic over? Isn't this all sort of done? Or are they hatching something new?
Well, they're still researching the vaccine.
Yeah, and they're probably still modelling it.
Still researching. Why would they do that?
It's a new technology.
Wasn't it perfectly safe? Cool. Sorry.
Do you want to have a look at
spot on that one?
Yeah. Do you want to have a look at her connection with the WHO through the Spinoff? Because that's just bizarro. Oh, I'm talking about Siouxie Wiles. So Anna and I were looking into the Siouxie Wiles phenomenon, let's call it, where the media took her and stuff. So this is Wikipedia. talking, if you just can scroll down a little bit. Oh yeah, during the COVID-19 pandemic, the Spinoff began working with the World Health Organization. After a WHO communications officer saw their series of widely shared COVID-19 public health illustrations, they're making it out like, oh, they just found this little country doing this little piece of art and they just thought it was all so wonderful. So in a collaboration between cartoonist Toby Morris and microbiologist Siouxie Wiles, the Spinoff released the pair's illustrations, and the WHO thought they were so wonderful that they used them for all around the world. So then Stuff picked it up. So you can, to me, this is, just showing how they're all sort of trying to build personalities.
Right. Ads. Don't you just love those?
So how a Kiwi media company became the World Health Organization's latest COVID-19 weapon.
Okay.
Right. So it's June 2020. And there's Toby Morris.
Right in the thick of it.
Yeah.
June 2020.
Yeah, right. So there we go. When an email arrived and they, from the World Health Organization, they couldn't believe it was real. So it says they had drawn widespread attention, viewed by millions, and picked up by governments in Argentina, Australia, Germany and others, where they've made a big long story about this. Here we go. This is it here. So where it's got medical masks. This is what the World Health Organization has pulled up to make this global phenomenon. And I wonder whether it's how Siouxsie became a household name, perhaps. Sorry if this is triggering for people.
It takes you back.
So this is a creation by Siouxsie Wiles and Toby, and apparently the WHO noticed it and picked it up and thought it was so wonderful that they used it internationally.
Oh, pink people like Siouxsie.
But don't you think the WHO might have been able to do their own one?
You would have thought so.
With all the funding.
Yeah.
But see, you can see now how the media is so captured.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can stop.
Okay, well, I take your point. That's...
Okay. You might need to...
Yeah, right, there we go. So that's fascinating. So she had an involvement there with her cartooning side hustle?
What was it, the Spinoff?
What does she do?
So yeah, she's connected to the Spinoff, which is New Zealand media, who received a phenomenal amount of funding from the Public Interest Journalism Fund, according to the New Zealand Taxpayers Union. And she's very, very well connected with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, as we will talk about in just a moment. And yeah, you kind of can see how everything is connected.
Yeah.
Slightly separate, but connected.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of connection here. And so this all winds back to USAID?
Not even only USAID.
Does every strand go back to them?
No, because like the stuff that Anna was just showing there, about that funding on those sites, that wasn't USAID, that was the American Department of Health Services. So it's bigger than, it's just really this, why is so much money being pumped into New Zealand, University of Auckland and their agencies and places like the Global Vaccine Data Network from America?
Okay, so if we go from the News Talk ZB expose on the fact that Nikki Turner, who runs Uni Services in Auckland, has a huge conflict of interest. Then we go back through Helen Petousis-Harris. She's got a huge conflict of interest. She's received money from Pfizer, whether it's directly or indirectly. She's also received seed funding from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And then we go back to Siouxsie Wiles, who is also receiving money from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, who is connected to the WHO. Then she's working with the Spinoff, who we talked about earlier as well. They are connected with the World Health Organization for their communications. Then we go back to the Jack Tame interview with Ritesh Shah, and we see that he is paid or given grants to do research from USAID. But then we also have this peculiar little payment to the Global Vaccine Data Network with Helen Petousis-Harris from the Health and Human Services Department from the US government. So we've got all these outside interests wanting to be invested in the University of Auckland or Uni Services. What do you think about that, Penny? Like, is that something that is a little bit suspect, or do you think it's just a whole lot of dots that we've misconnected here?
If they were putting the money into things that were genuinely progressing research and science and balanced information, and actually, as far as someone who's got university-age students, seeing that there's valuable courses being developed for our students, I wouldn't probably think twice about it. But the more that we're uncovering about the corruption around the pandemic, the misappropriation of funds around the transgender stuff, the more that we think we've got something here, right?
It's hard. It's really difficult to be able to sort of ignore what keeps popping up. There's that one linking factor between all of our research.
Wow. I think you just nailed it. I think you summed that up beautifully. That's something that really makes this channel hum, because that's what's missing. That's our missed information for today, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.